I'm really good at achieving, actually. And I don't know if you're the same way, but I am so good. I can do anything. Like literally, I
Yes.
can do anything. And I kind of got to this point in my life where I had the car, I had the six figures, I had the man, I had the body, I had the resume, and everything on the outside looked like it was perfect, right?
Hmm.
And I had done everything in my life that my friends celebrated me. We're celebrated, like as women, we are celebrated for our achievements, or as men as well. But,
Hmm.
I work more with women, and I got to this point where I'd done everything in my life that everyone told me that I should do to be happy. And I was desperately unhappy. And that's when, I always like to say I was dying spiritually, mentally, physically, and psychologically inside of myself. And I kind of hit this point where I realized that what I knew was I didn't really know anything about
Mm.
myself.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. All right, welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface, and I am so excited to have you here with me, Lilly. I am so grateful and curious and all the things to dive into this conversation with you as a dating coach, and we're going to talk about love, which is something that I love to talk about, but I'm so grateful for first and foremost and honored that you are here with me this
Yes.
morning.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited. I'm a deep person, so I'm so excited to go beyond the surface for sure.
Yes. And I love giving you the space to share a little bit more about who you are. And I know that can feel like a loaded question, but I'd love for you to share who you are because I feel
Mm.
like no one can describe you better than you.
Well, thank you. Who am I? I mean, isn't that the question that everyone, every woman, or at least evolved woman, I think, is asking herself these days? Who am I besides a mother? Who am I besides a high achiever? Who am I besides, this person that just goes out and makes money, or
Yeah.
has whatever role, right? Um, so currently, as I sit here today, I'm loving, I'm caring, and I'm kind, and
Mm.
that's at my core. And one of the ways that I kind of got to this place of helping women actually find out who they are at their core so they can present themselves in dating from an authentic and confident place, is my journey that I walked through of growing up. And I've always had a big heart, always, always had this huge heart, a helper, a lover. I would give somebody the shirt off my back, just very just loving of people and the human race and animals and all the things. And growing up in a family where I wasn't given the best example, I was giving a very poor example actually of a relationship, that was unhealthy, toxic, abusive in some ways. It definitely wasn't like a spiritual, healthy relationship that I was modeled. And then kind of growing up in this environment where there was overt and covert abuse that happened to people around me and to myself. What I discovered as I grew up through my different relationships is that I really didn't know who I was. I kept, I was in relationships where I kind of had to dim my light, didn't really know what my needs and wants and desires were. And it came kind of hit ahead where I'm really good at achieving, actually. And I don't know if you're the same way, but I am so good. I can do anything. Like literally, I can do anything. And I kind of got to this point in my life where I had the car, I had the six figures, I had the man, I had the body, I had the resume, and everything on the outside looked like it was perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had done everything in my life that my friends celebrated me. We're celebrated, like as women, we are celebrated for our achievements, or as men as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I work more with women, and I got to this point where I'd done everything in my life that everyone told me that I should do to be happy. And I was desperately unhappy. And that's when, I always like to say I was dying spiritually, mentally, physically, and psychologically inside of myself. And I kind of hit this point where I realized that what I knew was I didn't really know anything
Mm-hmm.
myself. And so I started to learn, about people. And I don't know if it was the same in your family, but in my family, no one talked about emotions. No one talked about healing. No one talked about growth. No one talked about let's get better for ourselves. Or, there was no space for, because I was in survival mode, there was no space for any growth or authenticity, or for me to speak up and show up for myself in ways that I needed to show up for. And so
Yeah.
that's when I started my healing journey. And, fast forward through time, where I got to this place in myself was that in dating, I knew, I knew that I was a good person. I knew that I had a lot to offer. I knew that I deserved better, but I kept seeing the same toxic relationship patterns show up in my life and in dating, who I was attracting
Yeah.
and dating um, really didn't align with who I thought that I was, or who I quote unquote knew that I was. And so I started to do the healing work specifically about dating. Like, what is this about relationships? Can get everything in my life correct and right, quote unquote, whatever right is, but aligned.
Yeah.
But then the dating and relationship piece, I just couldn't get right. And so I started to
Mm-hmm.
do a really deep level healing on relationships. Like, what was it inside of me? What were the root causes and the subconscious and unconscious patternings that kind of got me to this place where I again kept seeing the same pattern again and again and again. And that's kind of
Yeah.
where I land today. And the thing that I always like to say is that, I don't know if you've been in a relationship where this past relationship that I was in like a long time ago, I was holding all of the weight in the relationship. I was the one growing. I was the one learning. I was the one developing. I was the one pushing the relationship forward. I was the one setting the date nights on Friday nights, but they never ended up coming through. I was the one learning the love languages of myself and my partner in a way to try to connect, with him.
Yeah.
And what I was never taught about dating in particular is how important it is to pick the right person to walk down the journey of like that kind of intimate romantic relationship with. Because a lot of times what we'll do if we've had these bad patternings in our past, whether it be the environment you grew up in, the environment that you just got out of, whether that be a divorce or failed relationship, is that we will pick from our trauma and we won't pick from our truth. And I was picking from my trauma forever, basically. So the importance of the person that you pick and realizing that maybe your highest self hasn't been picking the person is on
Mm-hmm.
you, whoever's listening, to heal so that you can actually pick, the right person for you to walk down that journey with, who is willing. Willingness is all that we need. It's not really love that we need, right? I don't know if you can speak to this in your relationship, but it's really a willingness for both parties to have the tough conversations, to set agreements and goals, and and really just to be. That's what a partnership is, and that's what we all want. But the
Mm-hmm.
the the importance of picking the right person, learning how to re-listen to your intuition at the very beginning instead of like 3 or 4 months down the road where you're stuck. That's
Yeah.
the work that I do today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much there, but what's like screaming at me that I want to, that really, I've never heard anyone kind of put that into words. And I would love to kind of unpack it just a little bit further about picking from our trauma versus our
Mm-hmm.
truth. Can
Mm-hmm.
you tell me more about that? Like, what does that specifically look like?
Well, it specifically looks like the same pattern with a different face, basically,
Mm,
right? We only know like what we have experienced in our bodies and our minds. We only know what we know. So it's
yeah.
hard for us to experience what we haven't experienced before. For
Mm-hmm.
example, Um, in the past, I like my father, for example, I was not safe to be who I was, to speak up, to have different opinions, to really kind of be a different and individualized, interdependent person in the family structure. And
Mm-hmm.
so the love that I wanted from him was really just to be supported, to be seen and heard and understood and loved is what I really, really needed from him. And we get to a point, anyone that's listening to this podcast, I know that they have done their work. Like they wouldn't be here listening to a podcast called Beyond the Surface if they haven't, at least like dove into like a little bit of what's happening inside of them, right? What's really hard is we get to a point where we have done enough work where we know that we deserve better, but
Mm-hmm.
the patterns are so ingrained in our neural highways, neural pathways in our brain. They're so ingrained in our nervous system in our body. Then we will consciously and unconsciously attract only what it is that we know. And so the healing work is such a process and a journey. It takes time because what you are actually doing is you are rewiring your brain and your body for things that are unfamiliar to you. You are used to being not seen, not heard, not loved, not understood in relationships. You're used to, like, I freaking raised my hand to this when I was, we can get into this, but when I was the chill woman archetype, I used my body. I always say I pimp myself out for love and connection. So like in one
Yeah.
day I spoke with two men because I was so empty inside of myself that was the way that I learned to get love. So I learned to be a performer. I learned to be
Mm.
a seductress because that was the only way. And I was good at it, girl. I was good
Yeah.
at it. And I know women are, and I get it. Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. We can convince ourselves, like when I was in that phase, I convinced myself that I could just handle it. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can just handle it. Either that or I convinced myself that, oh, I don't really want love right now. But what ended up happening
Exactly.
every time? Yeah. What ended up happening every time is I would catch feelings and get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
get ghosted,
Mm-hmm.
get hurt, or, something would happen. There would be drama. Also, where there's drama,
Yeah.
there's trauma, right? Where there's drama, there's trauma. So if there's drama happening in your dating life, there's your indication that there is something happening inside of you that is really, really crying out for healing too.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting what we convince ourselves, right? To
Mm-hmm.
protect ourselves, right? Like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see it as, is this protection.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I convinced myself was, I'm good. I'm good by myself. I'm good if I don't get married and I don't find the person. I am good on my own. And I think part of me like believed that a little bit, or knew that to be true because of the work that I had done on myself, and just knowing that I was this strong, confident woman. But I I was the little girl that have has always dreamed of like the wedding and being
Mm-hmm.
married and having that partnership. Not necessarily, I know, as girls sometimes it's like you dream of the wedding, or you're kind of dreaming of becoming a mom. And the mother piece was never really the thing that I was focused on. And it was, for me, it was like finding that partnership. And sure enough, I mean, my parents were separated when I was really young. So,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm listening and as I'm hearing, I think now, in talking about the archetype, now I'm this magnetic woman
Mm-hmm.
archetype, but I wasn't always this magnetic woman archetype. And I know that for sure. I know that to be for sure, because as I'm listening, I'm reflecting at the same time on my past relationships. And, one of the biggest things, like I definitely wasn't feeling seen or heard. And I was almost in this space of just wanting to receive love, because there
Mm-hmm.
was that, I didn't have that with my dad. And it was this
Mm-hmm.
replacement, or this crave that I was always looking for in relationships. And I think it was more so like the moment I got that attention, or like was able to, manifest, because I felt I was really good at manifesting relationships too, which kind of at one
Mm-hmm.
point scared me a little bit. I was like, this is a little scary. Like the power of my word, I'd kind of find someone that I was attracted to, and I'd be like, I'm gonna be with them. And it would
Mm-hmm.
happen. And I was like, wait. And then they didn't end up, the relationships didn't end up working out, which is fine. It is what it is. But I think it's important to like have that space for that self-reflection to see, what are those patterns that are
Mhm.
arising, and just getting curious. I feel like that's such a big part, is getting curious of what's coming up, and that's where, the start of our healing happens, is this place of curiosity.
Totally.
I'd love for you to share too a little bit more about the different archetypes, and maybe just giving us a little overview so we can kind of see. And there's the quiz anyways that our
Yeah,
listeners can go and tune into. But yeah, if you want to share a little bit more about the archetypes.
totally. Yeah. And I love that piece about curiosity too, because, you know, really quick about picking from your trauma, not your truth, is
Hmm.
that we, like, women that tend to have been through like failed relationship after failed relationship and divorce after divorce, or what have you, is we tend to start to have these beliefs, right? Like, which is like, I'm better off alone, which is the fortress woman, by the way. I'll get into that. But
Mm,
um what I really just want to say is that our patterns, whatever patterns that you're seeing, and this isn't just dating and relationships. Like, a pattern is a pattern is a pattern, like in money and business and job and friends and family and all the things. But if you're seeing a pattern in your life, your pattern is not you. It is really just a part of you that is screaming for you to heal. So it's really a signpost of, okay, there's really some root cause work inside of me. I'm not broken, right? Let's reframe that. I'm not broken, but there is some love that I could give to myself in ways that I have never been loved before. And so that's what, I always like to say, just to kind of close off that trauma or truth thing. With the dating archetypes are so fun because where they came from, I don't know, if your listeners or you are connected to universe or God or creator or whatever. Um, but like I said, this whole thing has followed my journey.
mhm,
And I've really, in my family, I am the cycle breaker. There are it's still present. My mom and dad, they don't really care what I do. They don't It's kind of scary, I think, and confronting for them. I don't know if you're the same way.
mhm,
My siblings, they are actually working on their stuff because they see me doing, like, improving and being a better person and having a better energy, better aura. But nonetheless, this really followed my journey of going from really, really crappy relationships, feeling unseen, unheard, feeling small, not having, any really lasting joy in relationships, up to now, where I am in the best relationship of my life. He with the best man I've ever known, and that doesn't necessarily have to make this true, but it is very nice. Like, thank you, God, for sending
mhm.
me him. Um, but it follows really the phases that I went through of getting to where I am, which is the magnetic woman, which is what you tested as, right?
Yeah.
And a couple things combined with that, God was like, so, about attachment styles, about what's actually happening in our body, in our soma, what's happening in our emotional system, what's happening in our brain, what's happening in our beliefs, the things that no one talks about.
Mhm.
Like, literally, God one day was just like, blah, this is something. And so this is what came out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that came from. And again, these were phases. The feminine dating archetypes were phases for me. But it's an archetype because women too do tend to get stuck in there because of their unwillingness, and at some level, to not really do the work or go deeper or what have you. And I say that with
Yeah.
love, but also with a little bit of that's my coach
Tough
part
love.
coming.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the chill woman, I was a chill woman for decades, like decades. That was my go-to. The chill woman is super familiar with overwhelm and anxiety in the dating process, especially if she hasn't heard from the other person 48, 72
Mm,
hours after not hearing from them. The chill woman will attract men in her life if she's dating that just want to hang out and chill. And she will say yes to this because she really wants love and connection and affection. Sometimes a chill woman, again, I've already shared a lot of my truth here, but she tends to have sex pretty quickly after meeting someone. Even if she tells herself she'll be okay with it, she can handle it, or there's a part of her that's just like, oh, I don't want a relationship right now. So that's the chill woman. The chill woman, her work, if she tests at this phase, and this is all, when you take the quiz, it'll tell you kind of where you are and what you need to work on to kind of get to the next level. The chill woman, her work is boundaries inside and outside of herself, energetic inside and time outside, with people, who to pick, who to choose. Her work is to see and hear and understand, start to understand what her needs, wants, and desires are, because she has not had any. It's been a survival mechanism for her not to have any needs and wants and desires in the past. So her work is to do the healing work so that she can actually formulate what her needs and wants and desires are. So that's a chill woman.
Mm. It's so interesting because I love what you said as we led up to this is phases, because I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we can get labels. You know, we see a label and we're like, oh, that's me. I'm like doomed, and it's very much the opposite. Like we're gonna go through these phases of who we are in these different relationships. And I think as I'm like, I've seen the chill woman come out. That's for sure. I've
Yeah.
seen her. She's
Yeah.
there. I've seen her.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things I don't like about something like the way that attachment styles are taught, because you can go to your therapist and they'll be like, "Oh, you have an anxious attachment style," and
Yeah.
then it's like, "Okay, what now? I'm done." Right? And so
Yeah.
this is it's really a an opportunity to, one of my programs is called Ascension. Another one of my programs is called Transcendence, and it's about transcending and ascending to the next level so that you can. How many of us want to be loved for who we are and not what we do? Like at our
Yeah.
core, like, so that's what it's about. I'll move to the Fortress Woman. The Fortress Woman we've already kind of talked about a little bit. The Fortress Woman is so funny because, let me know if you think this is true, Ashley Ann, but the Fortress Woman, if she hears about this, she's going to be mad at me because she thinks that she is fine alone forever. And I know that she is. I know that she is. Hyper independence, y'all, is a trauma response. It's a protective trauma response. This is funny because when I was the Fortress Woman, I would like make my vision boards, and my vision boards would be like a huge house, a beautiful, mansion on some land and property, and all animals, no partner. Just me. Just me. So the
Yeah.
Fortress Woman, the core of why this is happening for her, she's had a lot of pain in her life when it comes to love. She cannot trust people. It's very hard for her to trust anyone, let alone like a man. The opportunity for the Fortress Woman, if she is willing, because there is a part of her that is very strong. I know this. I see this. I hear this because this was me. If she's open to healing, her healing is about vulnerability inside of herself, because there have been parts of herself that have been shut down because love has been very painful, in the past. Her work is self trust. Learning who to pick is really, really up for the Fortress Woman. Relearning how to listen to her intuition so that she can pick the right person instead of the person that she's going to have to do all the work for or sacrifice herself for, which she has done in the past.
Yep. That was Ashley for a long time. And
Really?
and this is what I mean. Like it's, looking at our childhood just plays such a big role in who we are and where a lot of the traumas that we've experienced and a lot of where our beliefs come from and these patterns start to develop. And the work is this beautiful opportunity to see your younger self, to go, to have these conversations with your younger self, to have the conversations, if possible, with maybe if it's people in your life that have hurt you, like having those conversations. I'm so grateful that I've been able to have the conversations with my dad because that was such a big
Mhm.
healing aspect for me. And also I've recently really acknowledged that my stepdad, the role that he's played, and being able to see what it's like to really experience a father figure allowed
Mhm.
me to heal even deeper my relationship with my dad. So there's
Mhm.
just this beautiful opportunity. I know it's so scary. And like you said, it requires this vulnerability
Mhm.
to go and speak our truth and whatever that looks like. But the the other side, I feel like I'm such a testament of how rewarding it
Same.
is.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be very confronting because,
Yeah.
again, we are. What's crazy about something like trauma is that I don't know about you, but I always say I am so surprised that I'm not in jail or dead based on my behaviors of the past because of my trauma,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
so we know that we are strong, we are resilient, we have been through so much stuff, right? And the confronting part about this whole work is that the things that have got us out of survival mode are not going to get us into fulfillment mode, into self actualization mode, right? So
Yeah.
it requires us to be like you. I love the word curious. It requires us to be a little bit curious, but also to operate from a place of maybe there is a better way and I just don't know it yet, right?
Mm.
Which is very hard for parts of us to really grasp because we have been so hyper independent in the past. And we,
Yeah.
again, I know we're all badasses. We got this. We've been through so much stuff in
Hmm.
the past. There's no way, like I can handle this. But again, like a pattern is something that's happening 3 or more times. So if a pattern is happening, there is literally something that maybe that or maybe you don't. It could be subconscious. It could be
Yeah.
unconscious in kind of what's happened to your past or your family or something like that, where there's
Hmm.
something there. There's something there for us to shine the light on.
Yeah. And give
Um,
yourself grace in that moment too when it is
totally.
subconscious, because
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. And then I've always said that once it comes into awareness and once you're aware of it, now you have a choice. Now
Hmm.
you have this choice to make a decision, to make a very conscious decision and choice as to whether you're going to continue on the same path that you've been, or the opportunity to do something different.
Exactly. Exactly. I completely
Mm-hmm.
agree. I'm definitely on that page. I'll move on to the goddess woman. And speaking of like doing a lot of work, the goddess woman has done a lot of work. She's done her therapy, she's done her coaching. Um, she has kind of gotten to this point where she's like out of survival mode and she has seen like glimpses of joy. There are things in her life that are really going well, but again, the dating and relationship piece does not hit for her. Um, the interesting thing about the goddess woman is that her outward perception of herself and her life, like on her IG or TikTok or with her friends and her family, is very different than what's really happening inside of herself when it comes to dating and relationships. So there's a disconnect, right? There's a
Yeah.
disconnect. There's this push pull thing in dating that she doesn't understand, and she tends to attract men that are kind of below her in a way, which makes her sometimes go into the role of like therapist, coach, helper. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing again about the goddess woman is this is a hard one to cross between the goddess and the magnetic, because again, the goddess has been through the stuff. She's kind of out of it. She's worked on herself enough to know the characteristics. She has a list of characteristics that she wants in a partner. She's written a letter to her soulmate. She has a love altar, right? But what's showing up for her and what she's accepting is not in line and in alignment with what she really quote unquote knows she wants. And so there's a lot of things happening in her head about confusion, frustration, this doesn't make sense, all of those things. And what the opportunity for the goddess woman, again, it's a hard one because we kind of have to let go of control a little bit, and control is what led
Mm-hmm.
us to get to where we are, the goddess woman. So the
Yeah.
healing for the goddess woman is about perfectionism, because there's parts of her inside of herself that are like really really craving for her to be perfectionist on the inside, and so she accepts or she expects that on the outside of herself,
Mm-hmm.
perfectionist people, and then control on the inside and outside of herself. So those are the two pieces that the goddess woman has the opportunity to heal.
So beautiful and so powerful. Let's talk
Yeah,
about the magnetic
yeah.
one.
Last one, the magnetic woman. The magnetic woman is the woman that I aspire to be. My clients aspire to be, and I always say this is not 100% of the time. Like this
Yeah.
is, I give myself, like you say, grace and compassion, which is a characteristic of the magnetic woman, is that she knows that she's so loving of herself that she allows herself to make mistakes. She allows herself to try new things. You know, there's space inside of the magnetic woman that she knows that she's a human. Like, yeah, you know, 80% of the time is what I give myself. And, you know, it's kind of bumped up now to like naturally, I think just because of I've done this so many times, and, you know, my actions align with my words, and, you know, all those things. And that's another thing about the magnetic woman is her beliefs, her behaviors, her emotions, her thoughts, her actions and behaviors, they all line up with what is good for her, her truth, right? Which is,
Mm,
this is who I am. This is what I want. And this is a big one because most women these days live in their head, which is not where your behaviors come from. Your behaviors come from your body. So
mm.
you're in alignment with your worth, and your magnetism have moved. So most of the time, all of your actions, your beliefs, and behaviors are aligned. And that's a
Yeah.
magnetic woman.
I love it. Oh, I love it so much. And I'm curious too, like what's, is there in the way you kind of talk about the archetypes, one of the things that I was thinking about, is it that we kind of, I feel like have all little pieces of
Yeah.
all these different archetypes,
Mhm.
and kind of like what I was saying, like I've seen myself in one way in one relationship and another in a different relationship. And what's is there kind of like this end goal with the archetypes? You know what I mean? Like, is it just operating from the highest expression rather than being in that lowest expression? Like, what would you say is kind of like the goal using these archetypes? Like, how do we use
Mhm.
these?
Well, first of all, I one of the things I really like about the archetypes is that it helps a woman that has been through some crap in their life and who does not feel supported by their friends and their family when it comes to dating and relationships. Because our friends and our family, although well meaning, you know, it'll be like, oh, you'll just meet them when you least expect it. Or, oh, there are many fish in the sea. Or just go be yourself, just go have fun. What happens is we can't do that. I mean, we
Yeah.
literally cannot do that. We can, you know, when people say, it'll happen when you least expect it. It'll happen when you least expect it. For me, it was me like literally going to the grocery store and hanging out in the vegetable section and being like pretending to look at vegetables and being like, oh, this is me like little happening when I least expect it. When I'm low key on the inside, you know, really anxious, you know, and like, you know, very worked up
Mhm.
about let's make this happen, you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about the archetypes is that it helps women feel that like they're not alone because it's literally about what is happening inside of themselves. That's one of my
Mm.
favorite things about the archetypes. And
Yeah.
to utilize them is to realize that one, you are not alone. That and these are actually for me, they were phases, and there have been phases for my clients now for a long time.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in them, it's also a utilization of what you can work on next, whether that be with me, whether that be with therapy, whether that be with inside of yourself. I always say, you know, within, you know, some kind of program or some kind of support is very helpful because you can actually talk about what's really happening inside of you instead of like glossing over everything, which is something that we
Mm.
also get really good at. We get really good at performing and not being honest about what's happening in our experience, right? So that's the way that I like to use them because again, no one ever talks about this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly like as I'm listening, I'm like it's this beautiful tool to really start to explore, to really start that journey and that process of really getting to know yourself, to
Mhm.
get curious. It's like this little starting point, this kind of this opportunity to really begin the journey of what is playing out. And I think it requires a level of being curious in order to
Mhm.
come to this, to even fill out the questions, to even fill out the quiz. There is something in you that has this desire to, and the reason I say this is to acknowledge that in yourself too, because it is not easy to come to this place to say, I want to know myself more. That
Mhm.
is a level of vulnerability. I want to
Mhm.
know myself more because
Mhm.
we also don't do that. We're not taught that. We're not taught to, get to know yourself, date yourself.
Mhm.
And that is such a beautiful thing to acknowledge in yourself. If you are listening to this and you come into this episode, know that you're being guided into this episode and
Mhm.
listening to this conversation. And if you then take this next step to go and fill out the quiz that Lilly has, then like honor that and acknowledge yourself for that and celebrate it too.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I always really like to point out is this: why I'm here doing this is not to shame you or put fear in you about what's happening in
Mhm.
your dating life. What I really, really want to show you is that even taking a quiz like this is an act of self-love, right? Because you can look at what's happening within me and what can I do to help, explore different parts of me. What can I help to heal the different parts of me that really, really need to be healed? What do I,
Mhm.
this is an opportunity to see and hear and love and understand yourself, so that you can actually feel it on the inside, right? And like we were talking about, you're talking about manifestation, right? The basic law of manifestation, right? Basic is that what's happening outside of you is a reflection of what's happening inside of you. What's happening, outside of you is a reflection of what's happening inside of you, right? So with love, I say this because I have walked this path, and I also know that motivation by shame and motivation by fear is short term and short lived. But the motivation from a place of purpose of loving yourself and wanting better, I always say, choose with the part of you that wants better for yourself. And that's almost in anything, right? Choose with the
Mhm.
part of you that wants better. And that's a very, very loving thing to do. It's an act of self love. Like me today, seems like you're probably the same way, like doing, like stepping into some type of healing therapy or coaching, or whatever my next level is presenting, is actually an act of self-love for me. While it used to be come from a place of lack, it used to come from a place of not enough, which I also understand, and I also think that that can be good, but at the same time it is so loving of yourself to want better.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. I'm just thinking about last weekend. I was at this beautiful experience, like a bonfire and cacao and breath work, and I was like, "Oh my God, yes, that was such a
Mm-hmm.
act of self love for myself."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've never kind of like pinpointed this, right? We always
Mm-hmm.
talk about like the acts of self love, and take the bath, and I'm like, not resonating, but
Yeah,
all
same.
the beautiful work that we get to do, and that we have this opportunity to make these connections and just have this little glimpse, it's all acts of self-love. Listening to this entire conversation is an act of self-love.
I would have to agree.
I love it. I'd love for you to share where people can tune in and maybe download the quiz or anything that
Mhm.
you have going on in your world.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much. I love these conversations. I love going beyond the surface. I'm a deep ass person. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would invite anyone, any woman who is dating, or if you're in a current relationship and you're kind of seeing things inside of yourself, because even if you are in a relationship, your trauma still comes up. If it's about
Mhm.
vulnerability and want to keep going deeper, like, and that's me. It seems like it's you too. Like this
Yep.
relationship that I am just invites me to just go deeper and deeper and deeper. But
Yeah.
if you're dating, if you're in a relationship, you want to learn more about kind of what's happening inside of you, my invitation is to go to datingarchetype.com. Ashley Ann took the quiz, but right before we got on, it takes 2 minutes and it'll show you your blocks to love and help you find your true love match. It'll show you kind of what your next step is, and you can connect with me from that page as well.
I love it. And my one last question that I always ask, and I don't want to forget to ask you because I feel like you have such beautiful wisdom to share. If you could kind of distill your life's journey into like one piece of wisdom, not one word, but one piece of wisdom, what feels
Mm-hmm.
true right now in this moment and tuning into those that are listening?
One piece of wisdom would be, it's about, love is about, it is about receiving love that we had not received in the past, right? It is about that, and parts of us know that, which is why we tend to attract the same type of person that are probably like our father in some ways, right?
Yep.
And there is a better way. I think that we talked about that a little bit today. There is actually a better way. And again, what got us to kind of where we are in our lives, of this place of like, we're pretty good. There are moments of joy. We're on purpose for in some ways. We are helping people, and then getting to this point of this epic love, this dream partner, this place of really really inviting someone in our lives that really sees us and hears us and understands us and wants more of us. I think that's the thing that really really, oh girl, that's the thing that really really still blows my mind to this day, is that he wants more of me. He doesn't
Mm.
want me to dim my light. He doesn't want me to be small, right? So if that's something that you want, there is always a better way. And again, you said it, you don't know what you don't know. You can't experience what you haven't experienced. So the spirit experience that you want on the outside of yourself is something that you literally need to experience on the inside of yourself. And it's
Mhm.
more than the affirmations. It's more than the journaling. It's more than the yoga. It's more than the meditation. It's actually relearning that there are different parts inside of yourself that have been leading your dating life or your relationship life that come from actually wounded and unhealed places inside of you. And so the work is actually not to push them down, push them aside, gaslight them, or push them away. It's actually to learn who they are, what they're doing,
Mhm.
what their purpose is, and what's hurt them in the past so that you can love them in the way that they need to be loved.
Yeah, invite them to take stage, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
be able
Yeah.
to surface.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Oh, I love that so much. I love that. And I'm so grateful for you and for this incredible conversation about love ultimately, and about us,
Mm-hmm.
and what beautiful experiences we can have when we just open up, just crack our heart open, and I think that's a big piece, is allowing ourselves to be open again,
Mm-hmm.
to love and that
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
So
It
I
can be,
just thank
yeah.
you.
It can be safe. It can be
Yeah.
safe to have an open heart when we start to choose the right people and the right energies.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. Thank you
No,
so
my pleasure.
much. And to everyone who's tuned in, I know and I trust that this was just, the words and the experience and the stories that you needed to hear in this moment. So thank you for tuning in and listening. And we will see you back next week with another episode. Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.